Hello, welcome back to IT Landy Nugget course for AD based practice around security. Part 4, planning for compromise. Let's have a look what we need to do. Law number 1. Nobody believes anything bad can happen to them until it does. So again, this is 10 immutable law of sysadmin. So assume your environment has been compromised. What you need to do: follow some general principle and guidelines to create secure cell into which you can house your most critical asset. These guidelines are as follow. Identity need to be taken care of. So identify principle for segregating and securing critical asset. Define limit risk-based migration plan. Leverage no migratory migration where necessary, and implement creative destruction, isolate legacy system, simplify security for end user. Create a pristine environment to house critical asset. What we need to do, regardless of whether your pristine forest contain handful of users or more, it forms the basis of more aggressive migration. You should allow the principle in your planning. Assume that your legacy forests have been compromised. Do not configure pristine environment to trust this legacy environment. Do not migrate users account to groups from legacy forest. Do not migrate computer from legacy forest, because all these, when it's compromised, when you take them across, they will take with them all the dirty, bad file which are infected. So you take them across, you infect the target as well. Make sure not in place. Identifying migration targets should be based on the degree of risk which your organization is exposed in one of the users or systems to be considered where deciding which user, application, and data to migrate into the pristine forest. VIP users whose accounts are most likely to be targeted by attackers should be housed in pristine forest. Applications that provide virtual business functions should be installed on freshly built servers in the pristine forest. Work with business unit to identify all of these. When moving to pristine domain, consider migration approach that do not technically migrate object, user account, server, and workstation. Rather than migrating users from legacy environment by using SID history, consider leveraging meta directory instead, yeah, with carrying SID histories. When user accounts are created in the new forest, you can use metadirectory application to map account to their corresponding account. Servers and workstation, migrating computer account into the pristine forest defeat the purpose of creating fresh environment. Freshly installed servers and workstation into the new environment, you can migrate data from system legacy to the forest, but not the system that hosts the data. Applications. One of the most basic principles you should apply is the applications in the pristine forest should be current, supported, and freshly installed. Data can be migrated from the application instance in the old forest where possible. In situations in which application cannot be recreated in the pristine forest, you should consider approaches such as creative destruction or isolation of legacy application as described in the next section. What we can do around this. An economics term that describe economic development created by the destruction of the prior order. In IT, it refers to the mechanism of which old infrastructure is eliminated not by upgrading it but by replacing it with a new, rather than maintaining outdated, redundant application. You implement entirely new application to replace the old one, migrate the data across, decommission the old one. It can involve using this your own on-premise environment or using the cloud. By migrating business critical users and systems, your legacy forest will be contain less valuable information and systems. Legacy systems present elevated risk of compromising, but they also represent reduced severe or severity of the compromise. By isolating legacy system in the legacy domain, you can focus on developing and deploying effective management and monitoring tool to basically accommodate the need. You can also alleviate and evaluate options to further isolate legacy systems in the main AD forest. For little based system used legacy system, you can migrate them to a smaller domain and support them by segregating the domain from each other. Making security as simple to use as possible by implementing controls that are transparent and simplifying principle to which users adhere. Define a policy in which executive and other VIP are required to use secure orchestration to access sensitive data and systems, allowing them to use their own devices to access their sensitive data. Use authentication mechanism assurance to permit the users to access sensitive data only if they logged on to their secure system using their smart card. Use IPsec and user right restriction to control systems from which they can connect to. Use the Microsoft Data Classification Toolkit to build robust file classification infrastructure. Implement dynamic access control to restrict access to data based on characteristic of an access attempt. Translate business rules into technical control. From the perspective of a user, accessing data from secure system just work and attempting to do so from unsecure system. Use TPM to replace long password. Again, with the same thing with smart card. Now, technology alone will not protect an environment in which IT does not work in partnership with business to maintain secure, usable infrastructure. Creating business-centric security practice for AD, information technology is no longer support function, it's a core business function. IT services must work closely with the business org and drive that landscape. You should consider defining level of security control and monitoring based on critical of the asset. It is critical to invest the business into ownership of data and system AD. Assigning business owner to AD data. Data and AD should have an identified business owner that is specified department or user who is a point of contact for decision about life cycle of the asset. No user account should be created, no server or workstation should be installed, and no application should be deployed without designated owner of the record. That's all what I had for you for part 4A, and we should catch up with part 4B. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.